A fighter jet is racing toward a runway that's smaller than a football field, moving in the middle of the ocean. One tiny mistake, and it doesn't just crash, it vanishes into the sea. Pilots get just 2 seconds to land perfectly at over 250 kilometers per hour, and what you're about to see are the moments when everything went horribly wrong. Yet somehow, they still survived. Are you ready? Starting with the most infamous one. Before we start, I want you to pick one. Do you think most crashes happen because of pilot error or the carrier itself? Lock your answer in, because by the end, you might change your mind. Night operations on an aircraft carrier are often described by US Navy pilots as the most dangerous part of their job, and for good reason. During a typical night landing, an FA-18 Hornet approaches the carrier at around 240 to 260 kilometers per hour, relying almost entirely on instruments and guidance from the landing signal officer. Visibility is extremely limited, and the pilot has just seconds to align perfectly with a landing area barely 150 meters long. In one widely circulated incident, a Hornet came in slightly too fast and too low during a night approach. As the jet touched down, it failed to catch any of the 4 arresting wires, a situation known as bolter. This immediately triggered a critical response. Within less than 2 seconds, the pilot had to push the engines to full afterburner and take off again before running out of deck. What makes this moment truly intense is the margin for error. A delayed throttle response or slight miscalculation could send a 20-ton aircraft straight into the ocean. According to US Navy safety data, bolters are not rare, but executing a successful recovery requires precise muscle memory and constant training. However, danger does not always come from darkness alone. Aircraft carriers like the USS Nimitz are massive, over 330 meters long, and displacing more than 100,000 tons. During heavy seas, the flight deck can rise and fall by several meters within seconds, creating a constantly shifting runway. In one recorded landing during rough weather, a jet approached the carrier under what appeared to be a stable glide path. However, just as the aircraft descended toward the deck, the carrier suddenly dropped with a wave. The result was a hard landing that slammed the aircraft onto the surface with far greater force than expected. These impacts can exceed normal landing stress limits, risking damage to landing gear or even structural failure. Timing becomes everything in such conditions. Pilots must anticipate the carrier's motion while maintaining a steady descent at speeds exceeding 250 kilometers per hour. Even a half-second misjudgment can lead to missing the arresting wire or bouncing off the deck. The ocean does not follow patterns, and neither can pilots fully rely on consistency in these moments. Meanwhile, mechanical failures introduce an entirely different kind of threat. If rough seas test a pilot's timing, engine failure tests their ability to survive with almost no margin for recovery. Modern carrier-based aircraft like the FA-18 Super Hornet are equipped with twin engines, specifically designed to provide redundancy in case one fails. However, even with this advantage, losing an engine during a landing approach creates a critical situation. When one engine fails, thrust becomes uneven, making the aircraft harder to stabilize. The pilot must compensate instantly, adjusting control surfaces and throttle to maintain alignment, all while approaching the deck at around 240 kilometers per hour. In real incidents, pilots facing engine failure often have no option for a second attempt. Fuel levels during carrier operations are carefully calculated, and a prolonged go-around may not be possible. This means the pilot must commit to the landing, knowing that missing the arresting wire could result in losing the aircraft entirely. Imagine being that pilot, seconds away from impact, with no second chance. Do you think you could stay calm in that moment? US Navy data shows that while engine redundancy improves survival rates, emergency landings still carry a high risk due to reduced control and power. The stress on the pilot is immense, as every second demands perfect execution under pressure. These moments reveal the true skill behind carrier aviation. Not just flying, but managing failure in real time. Still, human mistakes can turn danger into chaos. A single failed landing doesn't just risk one aircraft. It can trigger a chain reaction involving millions of dollars in damage and dozens of lives. One of the most well-documented dangers is when a jet misses all arresting wires, known as a bolter, and fails to gain enough lift to take off again safely. According to US Navy safety data, carrier aviation mishaps during the landing phase have accounted for a significant share of total naval aviation incidents. For example, older records from the Cold War era show dozens of deck crashes where aircraft either slammed into barriers or collided with parked jets. In some cases, emergency barricades, large nets designed to stop incoming aircraft, were deployed, but even these could fail under high-speed impact. A jet landing at around 240 to 270 kilometers per hour carries enormous kinetic energy. If it misses the wire and hits the deck improperly, it can skid uncontrollably. On a crowded flight deck where multiple aircraft are parked and crew members are working in tight spaces, the consequences escalate instantly. Fuel leaks, fire hazards, and secondary explosions become real threats within seconds. What makes this even more intense is the limited reaction time. Deck crews have only moments to respond, often relying on instinct and drills practiced hundreds of times. In high-risk environments like this, one small miscalculation can spiral into a full-scale disaster. However, even greater shock comes when advanced technology itself fails unexpectedly. In January 2022, one of the most advanced fighter jets ever built, the F-35C Lightning II, was involved in a dramatic crash landing aboard the USS Carl Vinson in the South China Sea. This wasn't just any aircraft. The F-35 program is valued at over $1.7 trillion, making it the most expensive military program in history. Each F-35C variant alone costs roughly $100 million per jet. During the landing attempt, the aircraft approached the carrier at standard speed, around 240 kilometers per hour, but something went wrong in the final seconds. According to official US Navy reports, the jet struck the flight deck with excessive force, failed to properly engage the arresting wire, and skidded across the deck before falling overboard into the sea. The pilot ejected safely, but the impact injured 7 sailors. What makes this incident particularly significant is that the F-35 is equipped with some of the most advanced avionics and landing assistance systems ever designed. Features like the Delta Flight Path System are meant to stabilize approaches and reduce pilot workload. Yet, despite all this technology, the margin for error during carrier landings remains razor-thin. Human factors, like approach angle, speed, and timing, still play a decisive role. Ultimately, these incidents reveal a deeper truth about carrier warfare. According to US Navy aviation training standards, pilots must complete hundreds of simulated arrested landings before they are cleared for deployment, showing how extreme the learning curve is. A single modern fighter like the F-35C costs roughly $90 to $100 million, meaning one failed landing can cause enormous loss. The US Navy also operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, each acting as a floating airbase, carrying about 60 to 75 aircraft. Despite all this technology, human judgment remains the final and most critical factor in every landing. Years of training, razor-sharp focus, and zero room for error. That's the reality of carrier aviation. Now I want to hear from you. Which landing shocked you the most, and why? Drop your answer in the comments.